Oh, hello. Dear me, I do suffer for the sake of my photography. I've come out at 5 o'clock this morning and driven down to Newhaven, and I'm on the cliffs at the top near the old fort, which is just behind where you guys are. And I've left the car parked at the bottom and walked all the way to the top. Got up here and found dreadful conditions again. It's just been sleeting for the last half hour and I had to hide behind a wall just to even keep from getting soaked. But it's starting to clear up a little bit for a few minutes now. So what I'm trying to do is get a nice dramatic shot out here of the pier sticking out into the sea. The waves are quite large coming in. It's not as high as they were a few weeks ago, but it's still quite interesting. And the sky's clearing to be quite nice, so if I just spin you around slowly, you'll be able to see. So that's quite an interesting sky, a very stormy sky. There's a bit of colour forming as the sun's coming up over the horizon there, and I'm hoping I might get some nice light on the clouds just beyond the pier and the reflection of the light on the clouds into the sea. And I'm going to do another one of my long exposures, which I seem to be doing a lot of at the moment. So I'll get on with it and I'll talk you through it in a second. Just bear with me. So what I need here is a 6-stop ND. Slow things down a bit. So let's put that on the camera there, and what's that giving me as an exposure? Nowhere near small enough, that's only 0.7 of a second. I think I'll have to go to a 10-stop. Oh, that's a 6. It says it's a 6. It didn't look as if it was having the effect of a 6-stop. That's definitely a 10-stop. I can hardly see through it. So, yep, that's giving me 30 seconds exposure. I'm not sure if this will work because there's a fair bit of wind blowing. Although the tripod's set up pretty solidly, I'm still not completely sure it won't get blown while the exposure's happening. And I can't even get it to focus because it's so dim. Let's open the aperture up. 15 seconds at f6.7. And it still can't. Right, it's focused now. Right, let's let that 15-second exposure happen. And oh, the wind's just started getting up again. The things that we go through, honestly. But the sky is very, very nice. It's very colourful. Let's see if we get a decent picture. I'm not sure this will be particularly sharp, but we'll have a look. It's not too bad, not too bad. Let's take it down to 6 seconds. Try again. Because I can always exposure blend the dark parts of the frame to the lighter parts, because I want the sea to be smeared and smoothed out. But the pier's not moving anywhere, so that would definitely show vibration if the wind moves the tripod. So if I take a shot now, exactly the same position, but without the 10-stop on, I can take the pier at a reasonably high shutter speed, which will then mean I can blend that and merge it with the long exposure, which might have the pier or might not have the pier slightly fuzzy or slightly movement blurred. So I'll take a quick one now with a 200th of a second. I don't think the pier's moving very quickly in that time frame. I think we'll have f8, 60th of a second. And then I'll do another long exposure, just so that I've got them all in the bag, so that I've got enough images to play with when I get back home. So 15 seconds, try that. Oh, the wind's really playing up now. Yeah, there's no way 15 seconds isn't going to have motion blur on the stationary parts in the image, so I'll definitely have to blend that with the much higher shutter speed shot that I took. But do I have the sea blended? Not as much as I'd like. Let's go for 30 seconds. I'll take it out to f11. That's 30 seconds. We'll see what happens with that. God, it's a bit brutal here. My fingers are freezing off. I'm not sure what the temperature is out here. It's probably 6 or 8 degrees above, but the wind's making it really, really cold. Oh, the wind's abated briefly. Come on, wind, stop blowing, stop moving my tripod. Just for 30 seconds, I'm not asking for a lot. Oh no, it's coming back again. It's very blustery, very blustery. I'm not sure what this image will look like. I've got some particular image in mind. What I want to do is have all of the sea smoothed out, and where the waves are breaking on the rocks and against the pier, we'll have a nice sort of milky look around that. And the sky obviously is not moving very quickly. Some of the clouds immediately above me, the low level clouds, are scudding across the sky quite quickly, but the ones in the distance are not moving very noticeably at all. Okay, so that's done that shot now. The next thing to do is to go back, get some breakfast, some tea, put the images together and try and fix my computer, because when I left home this morning it wasn't playing, it wouldn't boot up, so I'll have to have a play with that and see what's the matter with that. Okay, I'm back in the office now, and I've loaded the images into Lightroom, and this is my concern. This image here shows up completely the issue I had with the this is a 15-second exposure, which clearly, if I look very closely on the detail on the pier, for instance, this fence here, this area, the vibration from the wind that I suspected was going to happen did actually happen, so that part of the image can't be used. But I do particularly like the way the sea's been sort of simplified and smoothed. It's not completely smooth because the exposure's not long enough, but it's taken the texture out of it, which what I'm hoping to achieve is when I've got the correct properly in focus parts and no vibration part for the pier, that will look nice against this background of the sea, but the sky is clearly too stretched and out of focus and blurry to be effective. So what I'm hoping to do is use this image number 12 and then take the pier and the sky from this shot here. Which one is it? This one, which was taken at 60th of a second, which I think is the one I'll use, and blend those together in Photoshop. So what we'll do is open both of them up. That's this one, which is the 15, number 12 and number 11, and go take those over into Photoshop as layers. So they'll load up. When they're loaded up, I can use the cutting tool to cut out the parts that I want from one image to the other. Oh, eraser tool, cutting tool is not the same, but you know what I mean, I hope. So it's loading those in at the moment, and I'll brush out the parts. So the first image is the top image, is the one that's taken at the much faster shutter speed, so everything is crisp, and the detail in the pier and the surrounding fence and edge of the harbour here is all good, and the little lighthouse on the end's fine, and the clouds are fine. So they're the bits I want from this picture, which is the clouds up here, and then the dark areas down in the bottom half, which are these parts. So the way I'll do that is I'll just turn that layer off so we can see the layer that's underneath. So basically the layer underneath has got the smeary clouds, which I don't want, and it's also got the sea that I do want. So what I need to do is create a mask that allows me to select the pier area in the top image, and then remove it from the bottom image. So what I'll do is I'll make sure both layers are correctly and completely aligned. So we go up here to edit, and we say align layers. This is a precaution just in case the tripod's slightly different position between each of the shots being taken. And you can see these little white edges that it's put up show the differences between the two frames, so they don't completely overlap and wouldn't have been one completely on top of the other. So it was a wise thing to have done, to have actually made it align the layers like that. So now they're aligned, what I can do is choose the image that I actually want to cut the part out of, which is the top image. And the way I'll do that is go up here and choose the lasso tool, and we'll have magnetic lasso tool. And the magnetic lasso tool basically looks for an area of bright to dark, and it assumes that you want to make the mask line or the selection actually on that line. So basically anywhere that I take this tool, it will follow pretty accurately by snapping to, you can see it's snapping to all of the details along the pier here. It's not me being accurate that's doing it, it's actually it doing most of the work. So it'll be good enough if I basically get this around the edge of the pier. It doesn't matter if it doesn't completely work all over the place, because no one's going to look at the picture that carefully that they'll see it. So we'll go round the lighthouse and then ease our way along the pier and then along the bit of beach, the line where the surf is here, and now that is going to be my selection, and I'll take all of this part, and that is now the part of this image that I want. So if I complete that, that marching ants area there, even though it's not accurate in certain places, it won't matter. That's the part that I want. So if I now select, I can say cut, no, do erase it, I think might be the best thing to do. So if I use the eraser, and we're working on the top layer, and the top layer is the one that's actually the one that's blurred, I think I can now, what have we got, 100% flow. I can cut this off this image, and you see on the mask here it's showing as white, that it's taking some of this image away. Inside only the part that's selected. Now I've actually done that the wrong way around, so let me just reverse that. I need to actually invert that selection so that it's the opposite part that's selected, so it's the top half. And now I can then cut out the top half and leave the bottom half. I got it the wrong way around, sorry for that. So with the eraser tool set maximum opacity, I can now cut through the top layer. Now that's unfortunate because I wanted the cloud. It's the smooth sea that I want, so I can just cut that out of the picture. And again, I don't need to be too accurate because it's going to not show, no one will be able to see where it's got it different. So that's now the area selected and clipped. So the two images are doing pretty much what I wanted them to do. So if I now deselect that area, you can see that the lower half, the black pier, is still nicely focused and sharp, and the sea is all smeared and the clouds are nice and sharp, which is basically the starting point of the image that I want. So I'll flatten that and then export it back into Lightroom and finish the edits in there. So that's flattened, close that down, say yes to save that. And back in Lightroom it creates this new image here, and that's the image that I've just worked on, and that now looks a lot better. And those tiny little areas that I had which didn't quite, the mask didn't quite work on, you can't tell. You'd have to go in very, very closely with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass to see that the actual selection was less than perfect. I don't think anyone's going to do that. So let's carry on and do the basic edits that I normally do to an image. So I'll take all the highlights down to bring out the detail in the sky. I'll bring up the shadows to bring the foreground a little bit brighter so that it's not just a shadow, and we'll have the whites up until we start to clip them, and we'll bring the blacks up so that they're not overly black, and that is starting to look quite nice. What I'll do is increase the dehaze on it to bring the contrast up in the cloudy areas. I notice I've got some dust spots, so I always have dust spots. I clean the flipping sensor regularly and I still end up with dust spots. I'll just get used to having to clone them out. So little bits like that black bit on the beach I don't want that dog poo bin down there. That doesn't add to the image, that can go. Oh, should have gone. This is gone. Anything else that's distracting? Yes, that rock there isn't helping, so I'll just take that little bit of rock out. No, that doesn't look right. It didn't do that very well. I'll try again. That's better. Now you can't tell that's been altered. I really don't like this bit of old protective fencing and bollarding here, so I'll take that out with the clone tool as well. It'll be quite a crass and large edit this, but I think it'll not be particularly noticeable. So let's just move that source area around and pull that up so it lines up properly with the rest of the fence and the edge of the pier. Yep, that's okay. It's slightly darker. I don't know why it's slightly darker. The area here is not as dark as the area here, so I might have to just use the painting tool and just come across this area and just slightly raise. It's a strange effect. Anyway, okay, let's reset that set of previous modifications, and I'll just bring up the exposure very slightly so that that is a little less obvious that it's been changed. And there's a tiny bit of that twig there which I don't like because it's distracting, which is copied from the other image, so I'll just come along here, reduce the brush size, just paint up there and see if it finds a good match. Nearly a good match. Let's just line that up a bit better. That's perfect. That'll do. Now no one's going to notice that fence doesn't quite tie in there, and that's simplified, made the image look a bit cleaner and simpler. Now the next thing I want to do with it is something I do quite a lot, which is using a vignette, quite a strong one on it, and that's brought the overall brightness of the image down. Even though it's done it in the corners, it seems to have the effect across the image. So let's just pull the overall exposure up a bit. And I've still got these little white edges that the misalignment of the two layers produced when I aligned them in Photoshop. So I'll use the crop tool and just crop this image in a bit more because there's more of it than I want. And I'm looking to get the bottom, this piece of fence or edge of car park down here. I want that to be coming in from the right hand side at the bottom, and I think that's pretty close to what I want. I better check the horizon as well, because I'm usually not that meticulous about getting the camera level, especially when it's raining very heavily. Oh, it looks like I did this time. It didn't alter it. Good. Okay, so that's pretty much the image. I'm quite pleased with that. I might just raise the highlights a little bit more, and I might also bring up the saturation just to make those clouds pop out a little bit more. Yep, I think that'll do. So I'll export that, and then that will appear in the video at the end. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll move across the rest of the video now. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up, and please also subscribe so that you get notified when I upload new videos.